Hey, it's Debbie Potts, and I am doing a video podcast today to go over PNOE metabolic testing reports, why you should do a metabolic test if you are striving to be your best self and live your best life. And if you are an athlete, really helps personalize your fueling and training program, as well as I continue to talk about how to recreate your current self so you can be your best version of yourself in the future. So what we are doing now at age 40, 50 something years old, however old you are, should just make us perform our best when we're older. And I know testing and not guessing is what we do as FDN practitioners, also known as health investigators, and as a coach and a personal trainer for, 30 years, that I really want to know what is going on under the hood, get some baseline data, and then correct as we go. When we create a program, we want to have some data so we can see you are improving, as well as identifying what areas you need to work more on. And that can be revealed with something as a metabolism test at rest. It's also a breath analysis and measuring your metabolic health, taking in account a body composition test, your lean body mass, looking at your inflammatory markers on your blood chemistry panel, your insulin levels, full thyroid panel. How is your metabolism? So ideally, we can get all this information and then see where we need to do a little more work on. What are your areas of opportunity? So let's dive into a little bit of information here. You can look on this blog I'm reading. How do you test your metabolism? Or how do you test? I should change that title. How should you test? So metabolic health. Your metabolism isn't just the calories you burn. It's all the vital functions your body runs to use oxygen and to keep you alive. The PNOE metabolic test that I use is pretty accurate. They've compared it against higher end metabolic testing carts and find that results are pretty in line with the different models out there. So it scans your oxygen in, carbon dioxide out, and that can help us measure your biological age, metabolism in cells, fat burn and recovery, heart and lungs, brain and posture. So when we do a resting metabolic test, the test itself is only 10 minutes. And as we say, the resting metabolic test is probably the easiest test you will ever take. On the other hand, the exercise test, the active metabolism test, may be one of the hardest tests you'll ever take because you need ideally to hit your VO2 max. So we want to look at science-based, not math, to figure out what are your metrics now. So biological age is determined on the tests when we do the exercise and resting metabolic test. Metabolism in cells is analyzing how fast or slow your metabolism is. This determines your optimal calorie intake for your goal and measures how effectively your cells burn fats and carbohydrates at rest and during exercise. This information also reveals the risk for metabolic disorders as type 2 diabetes. And as I've said before, we want to look at your insulin because we are insulin resistant before we get type 2 diabetes. So we want to be preventative, not wait until you are struggling, sick, and feeling that there's something deeper going on. So ideally, we do testing quarterly, as with our blood chemistry panel, and doing a stool test, GI map test, type of under the hood exam of the microbiome. I think I would like to see everyone 6 months would be great. So how do we find fat burn and recovery? This is analyzing how effectively our cells use oxygen, how well we burn fat as a fuel source, and how well do we clear the fatigue metabolites as lactate during exercise. When we're too acidic, how do we bring ourselves back into balance? This information is used to determine your optimal macro intake during exercise. Then we look at your heart and your lungs. We're analyzing your cardiovascular and lung fitness. So the breathing part is going to help with that. This is a gold standard accuracy doing a metabolic test as PNOE. And we want to understand how these vital organs, your cardiovascular system, your heart and your lungs and your cells impact your health, well-being, and longevity. Your lung fitness is evaluated through 4 distinct metrics that paint the most complete picture of how fit your lungs are and how well you utilize them. And then we've got brain and posture marker. This analyzes how your breath affects your cognitive performance, lower back pain, and musculoskeletal health. So breathing obviously is the most, not one, but the most vital function for maintaining high levels of brain activity and avoiding injuries such as lower back pain. So as I look into the popularity of this underwater training as deep end fitness, they're doing crazy. I watched the videos on their Instagram last night, underwater exercise, holding their breath for a long period of time. And I see this a lot in my master swim group. I'll see people swimming with fins on a lot of times underwater, one end of the pool and not coming up. I can go halfway. So it really gives me the incentive to work on improving my breathing and my lung capacity by doing some breath work. So it's not just doing HIIT training and zone 2 training and resistance training. We also might need, as I find myself, if I'm going to start trying these deep water workouts, that I need to improve my breathing capacity, to hold my breath. So Laird Hamilton, my husband works for Laird Superfoods. So Laird and Gabby do their underwater training, and I think it's called XPT Fitness, and doing a lot of breath work, a lot of cold plunge and sauna work. So you're learning how to breathe and hold your breath. And if you are a big wave surfer, or you're going out surfing just the waves or surfing on a surfboard, that's why I think a lot of people down here in North San Diego are into this deep end fitness and doing breath work, because you need that when you are surfing and you maybe fall off your surfboard and fall off the wave, whatever you call surfing technology or terminology, that you need to be able to be underwater until you come up to surface and not die. So it's kind of important to breathe. So the PNOE metabolic testing, as hopefully we're going to start doing on the deep end fitness people here in San Diego, resting metabolic rate is not just, the resting test isn't just about your metabolism. We're analyzing your breath, but also we can help personalize your nutrition plan by gaining more data. This isn't the only thing I use to help figure out nutrition plan macros. I also use my nutritional therapy practitioner forms that we use via a program called NutriQ. I'll send people a 3-day food and mood log that's very detailed on what you're eating, when, why, and how. How is your motility? What's your exercise? What supplements are you taking? What is your energy? How are you doing in between meals? Are you snacking? And kind of get lots of clues from there. But then I can use the information we get from this PNOE test on how many calories do you need. So this PNOE test analyzes how fast or slow your metabolism might be, determining the optimal calorie intake based on your biology and fitness goal, your macro intake, how effectively do you burn fats and carbs, and this can help us determine your optimal macronutrient intake for your biology and fitness goal. Workout nutrition, as we do the exercise test, we can analyze the rate of which you burn fat, oxidized fats, and carbohydrates during training. And then we can figure out your optimal nutrition before, during, and after exercise with this data. And I've learned a lot from listening to Dr. Dan Plews. You can do his courses on Endure IQ, but also looking at how to fuel for training and fuel for races, doing a metabolic test isn't exact. Obviously, you're on a treadmill or a bike inside. It's not going to be the same scenario as outdoor and a race day. So we can kind of guess and experiment with that in your training and then on race day. So that's why we like to have a B race and a C race so you can practice and then nail it for your A race. Now, food type, determining the part of your body that's hindering your health and performance, and find the food groups that most helpful to fix it. So it might be macros, but micronutrients. So looking at, are you burning fat as your main fuel source, and are you metabolically flexible so you can burn fat and then go to carbs when you need them, when you're at higher heart rates, and then switch back to burning fats when you recover. So how metabolically flexible you are, but also looking at during exercise intensities, where do we see the changes in your fuel source? And then nutrient timing, the meal timing that regulates hunger levels, minimizing those sugar spikes, maximize training benefits. So again, adding on other additional clues is if you wore a continuous glucose monitor as NutriSense or levels, or get a CGM from your doctor if they can get it covered by insurance, and track your glucose. And so we can know, might be these healthy, real foods, but are you eating foods that are inflammatory to you? Are they your stress causing your blood sugar to go up? What foods, and when you put them together with macros, protein, fat, and carbs, what makes you feel fuller longer and avoid the high and low blood sugar? So this is just one tool in the toolbox that we want to correlate data with other modalities, as a CGM, as your blood work, as your HRV testing when you're Oura Ring or Whoop Band, and get all this information in lab testing. So fat loss. If you are looking to lose weight, we want to not lose muscle. And this is a big topic right now in our community about not fasting so long. If you're a fit and active athlete, you don't want to do extended fasting. And the reason is we don't want to cause more stress in our body, because we're already stressing our body a lot with our workouts and with our daily crazy life schedules, but also we're wanting to preserve muscle. And we don't want to be in a catabolic state that we're breaking muscle down. As we age, we're fighting to get that muscle, to maintain that muscle and gain muscle. So doing too much dieting the wrong way, we really want to figure out, what are your macros? What is your strategy for you based on your exercise, life, and nutrition to best hit your body composition changes, rather than weight loss. Fat loss is increasing fat loss, but also decreasing fat and increasing lean body mass muscle. So doing the breath analysis as PNOE, again, the gold standard for measuring your metabolism, to determine your nutrition and exercise that best works with your innate intelligence and biology. And rehabilitation is interesting. I think doing this metabolic testing, as I said, we can find out your breathing mechanics. Are you struggling with breathing properly? And I just read something about pelvic floor and how this can help and teach us how to use those right muscles so we breathe and not have leakage problems, pelvic floor issues, as well as mobility in our thoracic spine and our lung capacity if we tend to breathe incorrectly. I remember watching friends running with them, and they'd be hyper. I could hear them breathing really heavy, and their neck and their shoulders were super tight. So I think looking at your mechanics when you're breathing at rest and then during exercise gives us more feedback on what are your areas of opportunity, what's holding you back from being at your best, what's your full potential. Maybe it's a simple thing as learning how to breathe differently at rest and during exercise. So again, longevity, we can tell breath analysis with your biological age versus your actual age, determining the chronic conditions as heart and lung disease. So longevity markers, as we hear about doing a VO2 max, is pretty popular. So you can read more about this on my blog, but PNOE metabolic testing determines your optimal heart rate training zones, peak fat burning zone, your thresholds, your zone 3, 4, and 5. So Lots more. Zone 2 improves fat burning efficiency, enhances cellular fitness, lowers obesity risk. Zone 4 and 5 increase VO2 max, improve testosterone levels, enhances lung function. And then you want to figure out your balance between resistance training and cardio and your sprint interval training. So we can identify what you need more work on and do less of with the proper testing. But what I've been talking about with other listeners and clients is that we need to get the proper assessment. So getting this test done is one thing. That's just a simple part. The analysis that we need and correlate the data with your other intake forms is really important to figure out the ideal training, fueling training, and lifestyle schedule. As I go into the holistic method, looking at your sleep and your stress and your movement and your digestion, your gut health and your hydration, mineral balancing, signs and symptoms, as well as gratitude, play, laughter. So looking at your heart rate variability and all that. So more into what is metabolism? Why is it important to have a high metabolism? What can cause metabolism to slow down, aging, nutrition, and your training? So this is why I think it's important to talk about this as we're aging endurance athletes, if you're triathletes, runner, cyclist, trail runner. We need to work on the fight of losing muscle as we age. So I think less chronic cardio and more resistance training and HIIT training, shorter workouts with more quality over quantity. So you can read the rest of my blog, debbiepotts.net, head to the blog page. Now here's the report. This is a resting test and you'll get this big report. And so what I'm trying to share with people, visually, you can see this a little better on the video, YouTube channel, metabolic fitness, resting metabolic rate, fat burn efficiency. These are going to tell you, these first three items, where do you rank 0, 4, 2, 1, that you're giving grading, how many rates are limitations, which are neutral, good, excellent. Now, I know I'm a high performer. Usually my clients are similar to me where we want excellent. I don't want to be 2. It's like my Oura Ring score. If I'm not 90 or higher, I need to do better. So metabolic fitness, resting metabolic, fat burning efficiency. Those are all similar. And then your heart fitness, we're going to be looking at heart rate variability. Now, I've been using Sweet Beat Life, Rhonda Collier. I worked with her 10 years, plus 10 years on heart rate variability. And I started doing my HRV test on clients during this PNOE test. So I can look and see in real time your LF, low frequency, to your high frequency. Low frequency is your sympathetic nervous system, a measurement of your fight or flight. And then your high frequency is your rest and digest parasympathetic nervous system. Then we have the last 3 markers on your resting metabolic breath analysis test is lung fitness, breathing and cognition, breathing and posture. So we're looking at your breath per minute, how much oxygen you're breathing in, looking at the breath and your posture. We can tell areas of opportunity for that. So then the report, metabolic disease, more insulin resistance, type 2 diabetes. How are you burning fat, carbs at rest? Now, the report itself, this is 18 pages, so I'll just scan through this, but it'll go through why it matters and how to improve it. And then ideally, this is a sample report. Metabolic fitness, you'll see each page, it says what it is and how it is measured. And then with your coach, we're going to individualize this because this is a standard report. Recommendations to improve it: resistance, interval training or endurance training, and nutrition. Now, this is just a standard report. So I take this information and again, correlate it to my nutritional therapy, intake form, health history, what you're doing now, and assess everything. So that's why the test is 10 minutes, but the rest of it is me spending a couple hours on your test results, and then figuring out, okay, what should we do first? How should we prioritize your plan of action to improve your limiters? Sleep, avoid overfeeding, reduce stress, whatever it might be. So that's metabolic health, metabolic fitness, metabolic rate. We're calculating the resting metabolic rate measured with PNOE and with comparing the numbers we get from PNOE metabolic tests at rest, compare it against the estimated value generated by the Harris-Benedict equation. The equation for RMR values calculated based on your age, gender, weight, and height, and this is your predicted metabolic rate. So we compare both. So the marker on the report here is your resting metabolic rate score is how fast or slow your metabolism is. Are you burning more or fewer calories than what is predicted based on your weight, gender, age, and height? And then recommendations to improve it. So those would be individualized. Okay, fat burning efficiency, how you are burning fat as a main fuel source at rest. So we talk about in previous episodes, RER values closer to 0.7 are higher fat burning efficiency score. When your RER values are closer to 1.0, that's reflective of more carbohydrate burning. So it's a low fat burning efficiency score. Then we go over, okay, if that's an area that you scored lower on, if you're not excellent or good, we might want to focus on that as our main priority. If it's how you train, how you eat, how your lifestyle habits are, we look at that. Do you need some cold exposure? This improves mitochondrial health, fat burning efficiency, stress management, because chronic stress impacts all efforts. As I gained 30 pounds when I had my adrenal exhaustion, and I was coming off of my best race season ever, Ironman Canada, Ironman Hawaii, doing my best marathon, a 50K trail run, and then suddenly gained 30 pounds without changing anything. So that's why I do what I do, because I don't want you have to go through that. So we can avoid this sudden weight gain without unexplained weight gain by identifying what's going on. Also look at your full thyroid panel here. And I just was talking about that in a previous episode. Heart fitness, we're looking at your low and high frequency, HRV, and then lung fitness, last three markers, breathing and cognition, if you hyperventilate. And then lastly, breathing and posture is measured by your resting breathing frequency. So that's the exercise, your resting test. Also, your metabolic disease risk is how well you burn fat at rest. Now, the last part, which people like almost the most, is what is your metabolism? How many calories you burn? So you can see these charts on the video. Resting metabolic rate for the sample report is 2257 calories a day. If they want weight gain, weight maintenance, or weight loss, we might look at, all right, active calories a day, daily activity calories, but without doing anything, they need 100 calories a day. If days you don't work out with daily activity, days you do work out, you might need this many calories if you're trying to just maintain your weight, depending on the goals that we set into the program. So the days, how much you burn is on the left, and then on the right, how you should eat. The days you don't work out, how many calories a day. During the days you do work out. So it gives you kind of idea. We can figure out, okay, fuel sources, calories burned. But what about your macros? And this is where I tweak it. This is not my report. I like to go by Dr. Gabrielle Lyons for recommendations. Aging athletes and females, we need more protein. So we want to get that ideal 100 grams or more a day. And I start macronutrient ratio here looking at protein. We know we all need protein. Fat and carbs are going to vary based on your metabolic type, your genetics, and your exercise activity level, because you have to earn those carbs. And they're not necessary, but they do help you fuel for harder workouts, which we need more of as we get older, especially as females. So protein, we start here, and then we'll adjust fat and carbs. Now, I am going again by Dr. Gabrielle's carb ratio and having that protein spread out 30, 50 grams a day. So this person, if they are 150 pounds, that's their ideal body weight. That's how much protein they need, about 150 grams of protein a day. So say that's what this person needs. And then we adjust carbs on workout days and non-workout days. So This is definitely higher than I'd recommend. PNOE dietitians don't do as I would do. 45% carbs, I think, are a little much. I go by Dr. Gabrielle, and Dan Plews for athletes says about 130 grams of carbs a day. So 100 grams. And then the carb threshold with your meals, depending on going by Dr. Stacy Sims, for women, they're more insulin resistant. We're placing those carbs in and around your workouts, or using them for your fuel for your higher intensity workouts. So there's a lot to figuring out what it is, and then what your nutrition is, what you need to do. Now, just to go over this real quick, just a few more minutes left. This is the exercise report, sample report. So we're measuring aerobic health, cardiovascular fitness, obviously, high intensity performance, recovery capacity. So when we stop the test, we measure how fast is your heart rate down and how do you recover with heart rate and breathing the last 2 minutes post-workout, post-test. And then fat burning efficiency, moving economy, metabolic rate, expiratory power, breathing and cognition, breathing stability, respiratory. So you can see these last 1, 2, 3, 4 markers are all about a breath analysis during exercise, different intensities. Super essential for performance and great way to identify maybe this is where we need to focus on breathing properly. If your breathing cognition score, as this example, is a limitation, and the recovery capacity. So we can take all these severe limitations to limitations, even up to neutral, create a program based on those results. So then we take all this with their history, we get the biological age information, and then as I did with the resting test, you'll see it's similar. How is it measured? Recommendations for exercise, nutrition, and lifestyle, recovery, and it goes on for 25 pages. So I'm not going to go through this, but this is what I give my clients. Then we have 1 to 2 coaching calls. And then ideally, they continue with an accountability program using training peaks and check-in once a week. Now, interval training, we can figure out, hey, based on the results, this is their training program. How much she should do of each. This is where I work with people's coaches, or I'm their coach. The intervals, how much, how long, how frequent, what type of intervals, short, medium, or long. So zone 3, 4, or 5, or all, or, what do we need to do? And then cardio, do you need more zone 2, or do you need some moderate tempo pieces in zone 3, or do you need some hard 20, 40 minutes doing zone 4 tempo pieces, depending on your race, where you are. And again, women are different than men as we age. So I would do some different programming. And then resistance training. What do we need for that? So this is why I think it's important for athletes and their coaches to run this test, because then we can figure out their resistance training hit and endurance training or cardiovascular training. Then we have the data of their training zones, their heart rate, watts, or speed on a treadmill or running, benefits and what it feels like and when to use. And then we have this data, which will change. That's why we want to retest every 3 months. Energy consumption and fueling, their zones. And here's where we can help with the fueling plan for training and race day and do practice races. So fat burn rate versus carb burn rate, the calories, average, low to high end, and figuring out your fuel plan based on this, and then retesting. So that is fun to do for not just athletes, anyone who's concerned about their future self, longevity, improving the aging process. So we get information on estimated time and your thresholds, and we can get your fat max. Your VT1 is a ventilatory threshold. Your ventilatory threshold 2, VT2, is where we used to say anaerobic threshold, but it's just more so what Daniel Crumbach talks about, you're changing fuel sources. So zone 2 to zone 3 to zone 4 and to zone 5 when we hit VO2 peak and your heart rate max. So we get that great data. And then it says what those numbers, or what is each. The VT1, again, is exercise intensity and which physical activity starts to be considered a workout. VO2 peak is the maximum oxygen consumption milliliters per minute per kilogram of body weight achieved during the test. And VT2 is exercise intensity in which the body transitions into their zone 5. Anaerobic metabolism becomes a large part of the body's energy generation. And then fat max is in that zone 2, the exercise intensity where the person burns the most amount of fat and the least amount of carbohydrates. So if we can identify all that, figure out your training program, put it in your TriDots program if you're doing TriDot or Training Peaks, and we figure out what is the best program for you. So how to prepare for a test is really important. You want to go into it rested. You don't want to be doing any hard workouts the day before, and we want to get the information needed. So more about me on this blog page, on my website. Who am I? What's my story? Why do I do what I do? Why do I continue my education nonstop and becoming a board certified next year functional medicine practitioner, and just going on and on how life is not a race, it is a journey. So learn more about me there, and you can get PNOE information on the website too. So hopefully that helps you out, and we will hear from you soon if you want to get more information to figure out how you should fuel, train, and perform your best for recreating yourself now, but really start focusing on how you can live, feel, move, look your best as you age, and start creating your ideal future self, because we're just getting older, but we don't have to feel old. We can improve the aging process and be going around the world traveling and walking everywhere and still being strong and agile and being active when we're 80 plus years old. So join me in my mission to help everyone start adjusting how they fuel, train, and perform to optimize their aging process. All right, over and out, and you have a great day.